It's time to watch a movie and make some memories, but first you got to do the truffle shuffle. Welcome to the VHS Files. Come on in, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the VHS Files Podcast. We're here to take you back to the days when Friday nights started with a trip to the video store, and we're going to talk about the films that made us movie fans, the good, the bad, the old, and the new. And we're going to do it in the spirit of the old independent rental stores. So let's introduce everybody to the staff of the VHS Files. We have Jenny Lou.
Hello.
Jason in Texas.
Hey, guys.
And Eric in Panama City Beach.
Hello.
Are we saying where we're from?
We are. We're from Florida.
I mean, that was like specific.
What's your address?
Specific. Well, you have to make sure you point out that Jason's from Texas, because if you don't, he will.
Exactly. That's just, that's habit. That's how we do it here in Texas.
So, in the spirit of everything we're getting around here, we are big movie fans. We love talking about movies. Some would say we could probably be professionals at it, so we figured we'd give it a shot. I'd like to go around and everybody kind of talk about their first real experiences, like their memories of renting movies, those nights when you got to rent a movie and have a sleepover, and the movies you watched and talked about, just to kind of get a little bit of background on everybody. So, Jenny, do you have anything?
Yeah, so I was the sheltered kid who wasn't allowed to watch most movies, but the things I were allowed to watch was cartoons. So my earliest memories of the video store are going to get things like Rainbow Bright and the Star Stealer, the Care Bears, and then my parents would rent me these videos that were like children's sing-alongs. Like, I think it would be the equivalent to like Kids Bop today or whatever, but like not cool songs. So it was like John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt, and
Who's never rocked that?
I had to watch those videos instead of like cool movies.
So do you remember what your first cool movie was?
I think it was the Goonies.
Getting into a little bit of the meat of the episode here. Okay. Jason, how about you?
Oh, me. Well, as most people who do know me in this world, I'm definitely a horror movie fanatic. So anything scary and creepy, that's always been me. But what's funny is my earliest, video store memory that I can actually remember to these days, because I'm getting old, is going into a local store here in Texas, in my hometown. That was kind of like our thing on the Fridays. We didn't have a lot of money back in those days, so it was a treat to go to the video store. But I could kind of remember the first time my mom took me into the video store. Your parents always pick the movies because, they're going to watch what they want to watch. If you had one TV, you watched what they did. But for me, the first time I got to pick one, and I remember seeing the previews on TV over and over again, but never saw it in the theater. But the first movie I really got to pick up and take home was Transformers, the movie. And as being someone who watched the cartoon every day, I mean, it was a great movie, but it was very traumatic as a small child of the things that happened in this movie. And I'm like, why did I rent this movie? It's totally destroyed my childhood. But then it was kind of funny, but that same movie, I think I rented it probably 20 times. Watch it. I kept thinking maybe things might change, because you're a child. You're like, if I keep watching it, maybe certain characters won't die. But yeah, that's pretty much my first memory of that. But as far as the horror movie stuff, my mom was the person that got me into that. They were always renting scary movies. You got to go hide in your room. You can't watch this. But one of the first movies I actually stuck around the corner when they rented it to watch it was actually Friday the 13th Part 3. And it was the whole 3D thing that was going on and everything. But from there, of course, Halloween and all the other good movies. But yeah, I love the action adventure movies and the good old sci-fi movies, Star Wars and all that, but I'm more of a horror movie guy if you get down to brass tacks. So
Nothing wrong with that. I'm the same way, and we'll get into that shortly. But Eric, how about you?
Well, similarly to Jenny there, I wasn't allowed to watch horror movies when I was little. I couldn't watch rated R movies. So we watched a lot of action and comedy. And I was able to watch some horror on television. the television versions with all the great parts taken out. But that's, that was my experience. But big thing with the movie store for me was walking down the horror aisle and seeing all these cool box covers that I could not see, and they kind of scared me a little bit, and it was kind of taboo, and
I'm crying on the inside.
and as soon as I was old enough, a friend of mine in high school, worked at a movie store, and that's when I really just started watching a ton of horror and catching up on all the stuff I had missed, that kind of stuff. So I am a pretty big horror fan these days. But I remember I remember, Jenny, I had a cousin that we would watch Care Bears and some of those sing-along things, Skidamarinky Dinky Dink and all that stuff. I don't know. You know that one? No? That's as far as I'll go. But, action movies, fantasy, everything from the 80s is, well, not everything, but we'll get to that. But that's pretty much me. It's a romantic time for me, and a time that is gone, and it's fun to talk about it.
Yeah. And that's really what kind of brought us all together with, wanting to do this podcast, was to kind of go back to those times. Some of my earliest memories are, going to the video store and renting a VCR because we couldn't afford to buy one, getting movies that way. And Romancing the Stone was the first movie I ever remember renting, and I still vividly remember it to this day. I mean, because it's one of those movies that you don't really want to see as a kid, but you're excited because you actually did this thing, and you rented a movie, you brought it home and watched it. And I had to have been 4 or 5 years old and had no idea what was going on in the movie, because you watch that movie now and it's like, there's some serious stuff going on for a 5-year-old kid to be watching it. But yeah, same with like Jason said, I mean, and your experience, Eric, going into the video store and seeing all of these movies with these box art, that's crazy stuff for horror and sci-fi, but my one of the reasons this podcast is actually coming to fruition is because I have a very, very clear memory of when my grandfather was alive, and the normal thing was after school every couple of days he would pick me up, we would go to the junior store, I'd get a Hawaiian punch and some kind of candy bar, and we would go to Video 98 video rental store, and he would rent me whatever I wanted. That's where I kind of have, me and Jason may have a little bit of an edge over everybody here, because our parents didn't really care what we watched. And I was watching Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th from the time I was 5 years old, and I turned out okay, I guess.
You've seen some shit.
I think I'm okay. Am I?
Right. And but it just became one of those things, and that was my childhood. My grandfather made sure that he would, well, I think maybe it was probably just because he wanted me to go over there and not bother him. So he's like, here, watch a movie and leave me alone. So but that's kind of the key thing, and we'll get into more of that as we go on and talk about some of these movies we're going to talk about. And one thing I kind of want to put out there for, people on social media who may follow us, and we'll give all of that out at the end of the episode. But, this is in no way a purist sort of thing. We may be called the VHS Files and we're hearkening back to these memories that we have of that time. But we just want people to watch movies. We don't care how you do it. We're not telling anybody you got to go get VHS players and VHS tapes. We're just talking about our memories and why we love movies so much, and that's kind of where all of this is bred from. But we're here to talk about movies, old and new, far and wide, good and bad, just to kind of bring back memories and have a time in this time where we kind of need a little bit of escape and remember those days and talk about some good movies. And tonight we're going to talk about a movie that really, was core to my childhood, and I think everybody's childhood. And like, it made me emotional watching it last night. I'll go ahead and say it right now. But we're talking about the Goonies.
Steven Spielberg presents The Goonies, a Richard Donner film.
Time, chump. Hey, my food map. Whoa, do you guys realize what we could do? I don't want to go on any more of your crazy Goonie adventures.
Meet Mikey,
I gotta go to the bathroom.
Brand, Andy,
Shame, shame. No, I can't even look.
Mouse,
Hey, gotcha! Now get out from behind there. You're ruining the painting. You're ruining my job.
Stephanie, Data,
Booty bangers! Oh, guys, isn't that neat?
and Chunk.
It's locked. Thanks, Chunk.
They call themselves the Goonies. They've stumbled onto a legend, but they're not alone.
Chunk, I hope that was your stomach. No. That's the it.
1985, The Goonies. Let's set the stage a little bit for the movie we're talking about tonight. Around the time this came out, you would have been seeing Rambo: First Blood Part 2 in the theater. That was the movie. That was the movie of movies. And and me being the Stallone fan that I was, I wanted to see Rambo. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So exciting time in my life as far as that kind of stuff goes. But you would have seen in Playboy and Penthouse the first nude pictures of Madonna that were published. Yeah, and back
I think
in
I
that
actually
time-
have that
Look at
issue
Jenny.
now.
Yeah.
I know how big of a Madonna fan
Oh.
Jenny is.
I think it's the one where she actually had hairy armpits too.
Interesting. Groundbreaking.
But the week after Rambo: First Blood Part 2 comes out, The Goonies is released. I don't think any of us saw The Goonies in the
Nope.
theater, but it probably was a year or two afterwards, and that's
Yeah.
comes back to the rental store aspect of this. But just a little bit of facts about opening weekend. Did $9 million in the theater, right behind Rambo 2. So obviously everybody was out there seeing Rambo, but The Goonies came in second behind it on opening weekend. And it ended up being in the top 10 of 1985. The Goonies did, and so I mean it was a big film when it came out, and I think because of a lot of the things we're going to talk about in it, and
So yeah, great movies.
Yeah, 1985 was a year for movies.
Whoa,
Just getting into this
so
and
many.
going and checking out the movies that were released in that year. We're gonna have a good time talking about a lot of this stuff because I mean. To be getting movies in that time, I mean, some of the core movies of my childhood were at 1985. But
Oh, certainly.
so does anybody have any kind of memories of like the first time they saw the Goonies, or any kind of weird, sort of quirky things around the Goonies? Jenny, do you have it?
Come on, Jenny.
So I know that the first time I saw the Goonies was on TV, and we taped it
Yeah.
off TV so that I could watch it over and over again.
You bootlegger.
Oh yeah.
You wouldn't tape a car,
Original
would you?
bootleggers. And we might talk about this more towards the end of the film, but there was a made-for-TV cut of the Goonies that is not the theatrical cut,
Interesting.
Oh yeah.
because edited to run in the time allotted and for
Yeah,
content, formatted to fit the screen. But there is a part that I saw originally in the Goonies that has become a debate in our house. And even though I'm right, somebody won't acknowledge that this part of the Goonies exists.
It must be your dogs. I know Josh would agree with everything you say.
Yeah, right.
So, Jason, how about you?
I thought we were going to get to Jenny, and I wanted to hear this.
We'll get to
heated
Jenny
debate.
later. We'll get to Jenny later.
She's put on the back burner for now. A little animosity going on in that over there in Florida. Me myself, well, it's kind of like I said earlier. Grew up in a household, we didn't have a lot of money, so I didn't go to the theater and see the Goonies. But I actually did get to rent it. But like Jenny, though, I mean, I rented it as a kid, probably saw it maybe once or twice on video, but after that, it was on TV all the time. And I can actually remember the TV. It was always on TBS or TNT, the Turner networks. They played the Goonies all the time. And I mean, I can see it, and I can even remember it seems like every time they played it, it was raining outside where I live, which is here in Texas. And it's like, well, we're stuck indoors because, I mean, you guys knew we were kids. We always wanted to be outside in those days. So you're stuck in the house. It's raining. But it seemed like the Goonies is on. So what'd you do? You planted your butt right there in front of the TV and you watched the Goonies because it's on TV. But, I mean, by the time I got around to renting it, though, a lot of the kids at school had already told me about it. And plus, you know, you watch the trailer over and over again. But, yeah, it was definitely a movie that when I got around to seeing, it was cool because, you know, all of us had our little gang of friends that we all hung around with. Yeah. And then you're all acting like you're the Goonies and somebody's Data, somebody over here is Chunk. You always had those guys in your group, you know. You're like,
I always wanted to be Data, but of course, being the big boy I was always Chunk.
Oh man.
We all had that group of friends, and we always wanted that. I can even remember sometimes, like when I would visit my grandparents, my grandfather had a shop, and we're in there trying to make conventions like Data did. Like, hey, what if I put the spring on here and it would do this?
Yeah, I always love that stuff.
Even like, as a kid.
Yeah, inventions in movies, like in Gremlins as well, like the dad in Gremlins, that kind of
stuff. Let's make all the inventions we can. I want to make something that shoots oil out of my shoes so my little brother will fall down when he's following me around everywhere, you know? But that's probably my earliest memories of the Goonies, and then watching it over and over throughout the years. And it's like I said, even as an adult, I swear when it rains, it's on TV. So
it was definitely a staple on cable for sure. How about you, Eric? Do you have any?
Well, you know, I don't remember when I first saw it. I do know I kind of felt a little resentment toward it. You know, when like something's really popular and everyone likes it, and you kind of you don't get it, so you just sort of like reject it. I feel like that's what this movie was to me.
It's called being a hipster.
I was a total hipster. I mean, I was like 6 years old, but I was a hipster, dude. And you know, I had movies that I loved as a kid, and I think Goonies was so big that I like wanted to. Yeah, it is hipsterism. I just wanted to like the thing that I liked, and I liked Goonies. I didn't dislike it. Watching it later in life, I have a whole new respect for it. Really had a lot of fun watching it for this, and so many great moments that I, you know, that you never forget, you know, and characters and things like that. So, yeah, it's not one of those like super special movies for me, even though I think it's amazing. So it's a weird thing, but Kayla, my wife, hadn't even seen it. Yeah, wow. She watched it for the first time.
Did she watch it with you?
Yeah.
What'd
she liked it. She thought it was fun. But, you know, to her, it's just a movie. At this point.
I don't really have and you know, I don't really have a first memory of the Goonies. I just remember it being on all the time. And I could not tell you the first time I watched it, but there was just, you know, it's one of those movies as a kid, and it grabs you because, you know, your protagonists are kids. They're your age. It was exactly what you were doing at that time. So, I mean, it obviously was a movie that called to me and a lot of other people. But as far as getting into it, I mean, just watching it last night, I mean, we sat down to watch it. And I mean, from the moment it starts, I just started laughing. And a lot of it, I mean, just because you get into, I mean, from the first part of the movie, you get into it, and it's already setting up that it's not going to be your typical sort of thing, because maybe I'm feeding off movies from nowadays, but you know, in the beginning when the Fratellis are breaking the brother out of jail and he's trying to open the door and he's like, let go of the handle. I don't have the handle. Like I find that so smart that like they decided to go with that. Look, these are just normal bumbling idiots.
It's a strange opening for the rest of the film, because the rest of the film, none of it is like that really. Like the humor's in the same, you know, place, but visually it's so different. Like that opening part is like a crime movie or something.
Yeah, and it does. I mean, it gives you an end to where we're going, but it's like, you know, it's weird that this kid's adventure movie starts with this person breaking out of jail. But
I always forget that that's the beginning of the movie. Like, in my mind, it starts at Mikey and Bran's house.
Yeah.
Like, that could have never happened.
Right.
But of course, once you watch it again, you remember. But I never think about it.
Yeah, and talking about the beginning, not just that it's a jail breakout, but that he fakes hanging himself. It's
Right,
pretty
a fake
dark. Yeah,
suicide.
like he's hanging there like a corpse, and he comes to life, and that's pretty jarring, you know.
Yeah, especially for a kids movie, you know, because I remember seeing it and like, this guy's dead. Whoa, okay, is this a horror movie? And then when he gets up and he has the old pipe thing, you know, stuck in the back of his shirt, and I'm like, oh, okay. And by the way, that really is painful to try to do that, to act like you're hanging yourself with something hanging on like that up your shirt. It's not fun because, you know, we saw it in movies. We all tried it most of the time, but it's not that fun. It doesn't work that. It's either your shirt goes up or you're giving yourself a wedgie. So it's one of the two.
That makes sense.
But what I also find so cool about that opening is like it's such a smart way to introduce you to our cast of characters. Just this car chase through the town, and as they go through, you start meeting our characters, and like the way they play with the sound design and whatnot. And, you know, Mouth's watching this car chase on TV, and his dad tells him to turn it off, and when he turns it off, the car chase is going by, so he's smacking the TV like, what the hell? It's just stuff that I don't think that they think about doing, like little nuances that they don't do in movies nowadays, you know.
That's true, and it's fun to see all the kids in that montage, and we get our first glimpse of what's the actress's name, the mother. She used to scare the hell out of me when I was a kid, man, in everything she was in.
Yeah, I can't remember her name, and I didn't look it up from my notes.
Instantly terrifying. I don't know.
As an Ann Ramsey or something like that. She was in Throw Mama from the Train too.
Yeah, and she was in something else, she was in some horror movie.
She was in a few things.
I can't remember what it was, but I do remember as a kid watching it and seeing her and being like, that's their mom. like I couldn't grasp that was a woman.
She's a pretty severe looking woman.
Yeah,
she's scary. She's yeah. And she might be a real sweet lady in her life, but she plays it very well.
She probably baked cookies for the whole cast, and all the kids loved her or something.
Well, it's funny you say that. I watched the movie again today with the commentary on with the cast, and they're talking about, you know, when they were doing scenes with her and whatnot. It said she was the most lovely person, the loveliest person, but she played that character.
Did she get
so
water
well,
for them?
Like everything she did.
Like actual water.
Actual water. What do you think that was in those cups?
I think it
was rusty water. I think it was like,
it was the 80s, man. It was bourbon.
Sweat, ain't it?
It's sweat, yeah.
But you know, eventually we end up at the house with the kids, and then, you know, one thing I found out in watching this and doing a little bit of research for it is this is Sean Astin and Josh Brolin's first movie.
Crazy, yeah.
Wow.
And getting into that, like they already they just have this brotherly thing from the get-go, and again, like you don't see this kind of thing between actors, I don't think, anymore. It's like I never doubted that they were family. Like they played it so well. And that's like all the kids, the performances all the way around in this movie are amazing.
Yeah, all the kids feel like they're friends. There's a lot of, you know, chemistry between them and that kind of stuff. And,
they feel like the kids you wanted to be friends with when you're that age.
Right.
Like they're not the cool kids, but I always thought that they were cool because
they're too old
of their
that they don't mind getting dirty and going out and playing. It's like that time where you're big enough to actually go places, but not so big that you're bogged down with responsibility. You know, it's like an adventurous time, and they have the coolest adventure of any kid movie pretty much ever.
Yep.
Well, it's funny you say because of responsibility, because they're doing this in this effort to save their town.
Right.
And it's like, when we were kids,
like,
on a very long shot, though, keep in mind, like they find a map in the attic
rejects
with a bunch of like props. So there's no reason to think that it's a real, except the tie to the newspaper article or something, but it's a huge reach, you know, and they.
Well, it's funny because, and if you listen to the dialogue when they're talking, Mikey says like all this stuff that they have up there is the stuff. It's the rejects from the museum that his dad works at, and it's like stuff that never went anywhere. So yeah, like a giant long shot. Like, oh, this might be a thing. It just seemed like, And I think, that's key in where the Fratellis come into this, because they play a key part into like pushing them on further the adventure, because every time they get to a point, they're like, we should go. And Mikey's like, we can do this. Like, and the Fratellis kind of push that along.
Yeah. I mean, they chase him through the thing for the most part, but yeah, Mikey, I don't remember Mikey having to convince everybody to continue so many times. And it's funny because
and he has some.
Go ahead.
Sorry, he has some great speeches.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, he should have been a motivational speaker.
Yeah, the one in the bottom of the wishing well, when he was trying to tell them, like what's his name, the one guy that went, was it Copperpot, something
Chester
like
Copperpot,
yeah, Chester Copperpot, the character who went looking for One Eye Willie's treasure, and they found him crushed under a boulder, and here they are much farther into this trek than he was, and he was somebody who did this for a living. And that's what he's trying to tell them, is like, guys, we could go up this wishing well, ride the bucket up, and get out, or we could just keep going. And at the same time, they're being chased, but Mikey's trying to tell them, dude, we're kids. We're just kids, and we've never done this, and look how far we've gotten. Why can't we just keep
Arguably,
going?
Yeah. They, most of their progress was because of Chunk being clumsy. He drives almost every major change of course in the film by his clumsiness or saying something.
And his search for Rocky Road.
Again, another way of just doing smart storytelling, like this klutz of the group continues to show them the ways to do things, or gets them farther along in what they're doing. I really noticed that this time around. Like, Chunk and it's weird because when you're a kid and you're watching it, like, you're not picking up on a lot of the themes of this. You're just going on the adventure with the kids. But I really picked up on how much Chunk moves things along and how integral he is to this story moving along. And as a kid, you don't think about it because Chunk's not with the group most of the time.
It is weird. I forgot how long he is away from them too. And going just quickly back to Mikey, when I turned this on this watch, I realized how much I looked like Mikey when I was a little kid. Very similar haircut and everything. I didn't have the braces, but I was like, oh man, that looks like me. Anyway.
Well, yeah, one little movie fact, you're talking about how important Chunk was. I found this out recently because it was the 35th anniversary of Goonies this year, that Chunk, during the movie, like when he's doing the truffle shuffle, he had the chicken pox and did not want to go to the set that day. They say if you zoom in, you can see the chicken pox on his stomach when he's got his shirt up. But they told him, if you don't show up, we'll find somebody else. But that kid went and he did the truffle shuffle, the best he ever could, with chicken pox.
What a guy.
So I was like, give it up for Chunk.
That's right.
And that's one of the things I kind of noticed on the watch this time. I looked at Jenny when they tell him to do the truffle shuffle, and I was like, man, this is fat shaming. Like,
it is 100% fat.
I mean, yeah, there's a few questionable things happening, but this is the 80s after all.
We're gonna watch plenty of movies that use derogatory.
Oh yeah.
But you know what's funny is, in real life, that klutz is now a certified attorney.
Yeah.
As an adult, he
much
pretty much kind of disappeared, but he is an attorney. I think he's an attorney for in film or whatever he's doing. But yeah, he went on to an actual real job, and man, he's doing great.
Yeah, and in meeting, getting to Mikey and Brand's house and whatnot, we start getting closer introductions to the characters. You start meeting Mouth. And, I think if you're going to relate to anybody in this movie at this time, you've probably seen Corey Feldman a few times. So he's the one. It's like, oh, that guy's in this. That was one of the things for me, is I had seen him in other things. And I think by that time I'd seen him in Gremlins and maybe even one of the Friday the 13th movies. Right. And so I, of course, I was naturally drawn to him, and just the banter between him and everybody.
He is so great.
When he comes in,
I mean, truly a talent as just a fun, charismatic kid,
like when he comes in the house and starts giving Brand shit for not getting his license. Like he's so good at that. And like if you watch Josh Brolin's face, like he starts to grimace so hard and then he swings at him. It's so good. And yeah, I mean, Corey Feldman was definitely something back in the day. We won't talk about where he went.
There is. Yeah, you can see Josh Brolin getting all jacked up for his later role as Thanos. Right. So yeah. He was preparing early to be Thanos.
Mm-hmm.
What's funny, man, is like I got into a little bit of the research on Josh Brolin, and he you know, after the Goonies, he didn't do a ton of stuff.
Yeah, he faded away for a while.
It wasn't until like here, I got it here. It wasn't until like the early 2000s that he really came back and started like getting those major roles in movies and breaking out.
Mm-hmm.
But then we get Data, and I think everybody wanted to be Data.
I wanted to make inventions.
Absolutely.
Like
so bad.
So
if anything, like it was just one of those things that is like if this movie did anything to kids, it made them want to be inventive. Because of
I have a question. The Rube Goldberg gate opening machine is are we to think that Data made that or Mikey and Data made that together?
That's what I was wondering.
Yes.
Because Data lives next door. I also noticed a couple of things with that this time around because he zip lines over from his house to Mikey's, and I never really picked up on that as a kid. I just kind of assumed oh whatever. But yeah, that like Data lives next door, so I would assume him and Mikey might have done that together. But I think what's also cool about the porch thing is it also clues us into like these kids are familiar with booby traps and these in-depth sort of things like this.
Physics and machinations.
They're going to be a natural.
Things,
like so like it foreshadows like these kids are gonna be great at going through all of these little things in these tunnels because they're already doing it as kids, Yeah,
no, they're booty traps. No, booby traps. I said booby traps. It's not booty traps.
I mean, Data would have died a horrific death if he didn't have the chomper thing.
Oh yeah, the impaled, with the spikes.
Good God, that would have been the end of the movie right there.
Yeah. And so I mean those are the things that really rope you in when you get in as a kid. And I remember like just the banter between them, and then when Chunk comes in and they break the statue.
Oh yeah, I completely forgot about that.
He's like, yeah, and it's like, again, this is a PG movie, and you have those.
Yeah, and they put it on upside down, and
put it upside down, you'd be pissing in your face.
yeah, that's why it's funny.
And like, what always struck me was when they break and he's like, "It's my mom's most favorite piece," and my mom's like, "Wouldn't be here if it wasn't." Just so like, and like again, like that's the banter you would have with your friends back then, just bragging on each other like that. But I was always so blown away by their open, like they were just cussing in front of their parents.
Yeah, they all feel very comfortable with each other. And the small town, the small neighborhood, everyone knows each other, kind of a thing. Speaking of the mom, why is her arm broken? They never say why.
Maybe we missed it. I don't know. I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure it's not in the film.
I just a minor character to me.
Well, if the mom's arm wasn't broken, then they wouldn't need Rosalita to come help.
Yeah.
Clean the house and organize it before it's torn down. And then you wouldn't get Mouth basically telling Rosalita that she's living in a house of horrors where you
she's
have
a sex slave,
sex torture,
drug trafficking,
all these other horrible things, and the mom is completely oblivious to what is going on, and that's a really mean thing for a kid to do.
You think about her as she comes and she's helping to help clean the house. She plays the most important part of the movie. She finds the marble bag full of gems. So without her, this never happened.
Smart script, smart storytelling. Like you set up every character you set up is gonna play a part.
There's no fat in this movie either time wise or character wise. Like it's it's as tight as it could be. Once it starts, it's just go, go, go until it's over. And, you know.
Yeah.
There's no lag time. This is a perfect script.
Yeah.
It has everything.
Yeah, Chris Columbus
Action.
wrote a great story.
Yes.
No.
No. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Spielberg
Yeah, Spielberg
wrote a great story, and Christopher Columbus did the screenplay.
Yes. Maybe he
But-
trimmed the Spielberg fat out.
Oh.
It has action, adventure, romance,
Horror, yeah.
Yeah, horror.
Yeah, horror. And,
Horror, hearts.
and heart.
It's funny, you
like-
say hearts, I say horror. We see where our
I see where my heart is. It's in horror.
Yeah. It's amazing.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely like, you know, we're talking about it as a whole at this point, and there's still so much to talk about. But I mean, like, just from the opening with the kids and introducing and their banter and whatnot, like, it is like Jenny said this while we were watching it yesterday, and it's like, if you don't love this movie, then there's just something wrong with your soul. Like, especially if you grew up in the time that this came out, like this is what it was to be a kid. Like, this really encompasses that, like, so much within this group of kids.
Mhm.
Yeah, and you know, watching it, I thought about how really special it was to grow up in the 80s when we did, because
Yeah.
we're the last generation really that grew up without having technology present in our lives on a daily basis.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
we had
very
the
true.
Apple II at school where we played Oregon Trail, but other than that, you had a phone on the wall at your house. My Nana had a rotary phone.
Oh, yeah.
And
With a long
No.
cord.
yeah, I mean, you had a TV, you might have a VCR by this time, but you were more present.
Well, you
in
were
your
also,
life.
I think,
I
more
felt like-
free because when you go out to play, your mom can't call you every 5 seconds or text you or have a
Yeah.
GPS on you all the time. You go out and you might be gone for hours on just like a little adventure with your friends and climb trees and you know, get in trouble and all that kind of stuff. And there's really nothing they could do about it. I'm going out to play, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
and
like
you knew you were in trouble when when your friend's mom came out and said, "Your mom just called. You need to go home."
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Or you could hear mom calling from 3 streets down, "Joshua William."
you
better
got your
get
middle
home."
name. Yeah, you got your middle name in there. You knew you were in trouble. Or ours was, if the street lights on, you better
that's a
be
good
in the
one.
house. That was the thing. The street lights come on, you better be in the house. But real quick, like you're talking about that, like Eric was saying about the freedom. Like, these kids are gone for how long
Like a full
through this
day.
movie?
Yeah,
A full
full
day, and you're like, we're not getting anything about, are these parents out looking for them, until you get to the end of the movie and you see the 2 sheriff's guys pull up. Oh, well, there they are. You know, like that. Well, at least the parents were out looking for
And
their
are they
children.
are they looking
as-
for them because they've been gone so long, or are they looking for them because those boys saw them in the well?
That's
Is
what,
it?
yeah, that's
I'm not even
yeah.
sure the
Yeah,
timeline
that's a
there,
good
but
point.
I don't even think the boys in the well. Remember, he was just wanting to hook up with
Well,
what's
yeah.
her name,
yeah,
Andy.
that
So
dude's
he
a
didn't
jerk.
care. So
He's a real
he was
jerk,
Like,
you
well, I'm
guys.
not getting
Jerk
lucky. Yeah, I'm not getting lucky, so you can live in that well.
He
You
tried
know,
to
moving
kill
on.
Josh Brolin.
So,
I mean, he had him
Yeah.
on a little girl's motorcycle.
Yeah.
Bicycle.
bicycle.
First of all, he had him on a little girl's bicycle, and why would you even bother with a? I know it's a movie, but couldn't you just walk or run? Why would you try to ride a tiny bicycle? Anyway, he launched him off the side of a mountain at 45 miles. They actually show the speedometer. He's going like 40, closing on a 45. Shoots Josh Brolin off a mountain.
Well, he's just Goonies scum. They're
Yeah.
going to tear his house down tomorrow
Yeah.
anyway.
You know, when I first saw this movie and movies like E.T., anything filmed in the Pacific Northwest, I had never seen anywhere that looked
Mm.
like that before.
Oh, yeah.
It looked like a different
It's beautiful
planet.
too. There's a lot of
Shooting it in
beautiful
Oregon?
Amazing.
landscape stuff, you know, like just in the background. Yeah.
Yes, it's
It is, yeah.
gorgeous. And I think that lends itself to like the magical quality of this movie.
Yeah, I think the location for sure. I mean, even though we spend most of our time in a cave, you really do get a sense of their town.
Well,
they do a really good job of setting up the area though, like with the kids riding through the town and the overhead shot of them on the bike.
Yeah. It's like I want to live somewhere like that. Like where I grew up, it was nothing but pine trees. So it was nice to see like an ocean and a beach like look that way. Like that last scene where they're looking over the rocks and the ship's coming out, and you're like, "Whoa, I want to live there. I want to see these." But I mean, it's just like, you didn't know where that was when you were a kid. You just knew, "Ooh, that's really cool." Later, you find out it's in Oregon, and as an adult, you're like, "Man, I want to go to Oregon. I want to go to that beach one day. I want to go to the Goonie Beach and see how that looks in real life." And they say you can still visit all that. They got little things you can go and do, the little Goonie tour or something. So
yeah, and you bring up the girl's bike that Josh Brolin was on, and we watched this when we were watching. It didn't dawn on me again. I figured out that Data lives next door. He takes Data's sister's bike.
Data's sister shows up at the end, right? with the family.
Yeah,
that's great. Everything's so tight, man. So tight.
Dude, it's like I feel like they don't think about those little things like that.
Before we get too far from the house, I had a few notes I wanted to address. One, there's a dropped line where they say that their parents looked for it when they were younger or something like that. Did you guys hear that?
Uh-huh.
Like you could do like a prequel, with the parents.
Yeah, the parents, they grew up there as kids.
Maybe it ends and we find out where the mom hurts her arm. Maybe it's been broken for years.
Yeah, but
she's broken for decades, her entire life.
Over it.
Oh boy. So
there's a lot that, and again,
there's lots of fun little lines in that section too. Throughout the movie, like little dropped like winks and nods.
The way they do the exposition is like I'm really starting to notice exposition in movies a lot more now, particularly with a pretty high standard filmmaker right now that I won't get into, but like the exposition here is all told through normal conversation, and it doesn't feel like they're telling the audience. It feels like they're genuinely telling each other that these things are happening. So it doesn't feel like it's hitting you over the head. It feels smart. It feels like it's a natural part of.
Well, I think when they
instead of just like a narration,
they all speak very naturally too. Kind of talking over each other and things like that. Similarly to Jaws, where you have lots of people talking at once, and it's kind of a cacophony of people all talking over each other. But there's important data in there as they're all rummaging through the attic, and it's all like someone says this and someone says that, someone reads this and someone says that, and it's all just very naturally given.
Yeah. Well, it's just kind of like the thing I brought up about Mikey saying that all this stuff was rejects from the museum. I'd never caught on to that before.
I never paid close enough attention.
And again, like the thing with the attic is like you go up in there and there's all this stuff, and it's like, who would really have those like electric balls up in the attic?
That caught my attention too. Like, why are they plugged in?
From the Science Museum?
Like, why would
it's from the Hands-On Children's Science Museum? Reject?
I mean, I understand his dad's a curator, so I mean, I can understand him having some of that.
There's definitely some fun,
just the historical society.
Yeah, exactly. There's definitely some just like because it's a movie stuff in this movie, when when Mouth's dad is working on the drain, and he's trying to check the drain, and the water shoots up out of the drain like a fire hose, things like that. It's just because of a movie. I don't know if that's Donner bringing that in or what,
It's like the little things like that, like you watch during the movie. All of us nowadays, we try to find the little things that like maybe an editing problem or something in the movie. Like you notice that like water does not shoot out of a drain. But one thing I noticed last night, and I don't think I'd even noticed for, and it's a little, all right, when he has the copper key the copper skeleton kid, and he puts his hand in there and turns it, right? And his hand is locked in there. He can't get it out. But then he was it Data Falls, I believe, right after that, when he turns the knob, it automatically shows Mikey there over the hole, looking down as he's falling. I'm like, well, how did he get his hand out of the lock? I'm like, what's he's supposed to be stuck there. How did he get out? This is like you see water shooting out of a seat.
Tiny insignificant detail.
Yes, but I'm just like,
it's also like, it's like they find the restaurant, like, and they think the restaurant is open. Like that place is
going there.
That place is dilapidated. Like even at 10 years old, I would have been like, this is not a functioning
I give it a
restaurant.
food score of a 0.2.
And Chunk is well aware of this. Chunk says this place is crazy, and he finds the bullet holes, and he's in the vehicle. He goes, guys, we got it. He was saying it was bad news before they even got up to the building, and then he finds out he was right.
Chunk's the smart one,
and he is on top of things.
Yeah. And his reaction to finding the ORV, like bullet holes, like his facial expression and the way he says it, like that kid was like the fact that kid did not move on into other stuff. Now he could have had his own personal reasons. It could have been because he got fat shamed. It could have been
maybe he didn't want to. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, I mean his performance in this movie is outstanding, though. Like
great job.
And again,
maybe he didn't want to get typecast. Maybe that's what he felt, as though he's going to get stuck in that role as that kid, and then as the adult of the same role. Because that happens to a lot of kids. They get stuck in that same area, and maybe that's what it is. But
you can talk to the kid who played Anakin Skywalker about that one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But and then we get into the restaurant, and then this is where I had another little like moment of clarity or a moment that struck me. And it's like, when you're a kid, you see Sloth kind of the same way the kids do. Like he's this beast chained to a wall, and you watch it now and you're like, this is totally a family torturing their son. Like, this is
Like
they're
scared of him.
Right. Yes, this is. What's good in a kids movie? The abuse of a disabled person. But I wonder, and also I forgot that you find out at the end that, I mean, maybe he was a perfectly normal kid, a baby at some point, but she drops him, admits to dropping him multiple times, at least twice.
Yeah, at least twice.
So not only is, he in bad shape now, but, they might very well be the reason. I wondered to myself, though, because he is so lovable, and how, again, Chunk is the one to accept him. Although I guess Mikey does try to give him the food. But I wondered if I'm thinking about, talking about the 80s and being insensitive to certain things that we're more sensitive to now. I wonder if this movie helped in some way people accept people with disabilities generally. Like when, you know what I mean? Like I'm thinking of examples of people with physical or mental disabilities in film as a kid that it's such a beautifully done, thing to just show how these kids accept him, and he's so lovable. He's just like a sweet guy.
His ears wiggle.
The wiggling ears.
Oh my God!
But he's so endearing, and I wondered, if that made any kind of impact,
And he saves them multiple times.
Yeah.
So he's. That's a good question.
Well, I mean, you do have a few movies from the 80s that kind of touched on this. Mask with Eric Stoltz.
Yes, Mask.
It's been a long time, but I do remember that one being one of those kind of movies. And but I mean, it's so weird. The 80s is such a weird time for that kind of stuff too, because obviously we've progressed a bit, in some standards, but like just to think that's how everybody reacted to those sort of things back then just seems very odd to me now.
Yeah.
Mac and me.
Yeah.
Kids in a wheelchair.
Yeah, it's like me as a kid. I mean, when I first saw Sloth, I was like, is this a real person? Because you're a kid, you don't know about makeup art in movies. You just see what's on TV. And
you might not have even known about disability.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
and
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, luckily, I had an uncle who was actually paralyzed as a young age, so I knew of people with. I grew up with somebody that had a disability, but he persevered, and that's another long story one day. But the thing with Sloth is, like, I saw him, he was scary at first. You're kind of scared, but like you said, the ear wiggle thing, which that's got to be some really good animatronics they had going on there, because nobody can move their ears like that. But it's funny is me as a and Josh does it. He calls it sports ball. I'm a football fan, but there's the guy who plays Sloth is an ex-professional football player for the Raiders.
Oh, was he? Okay.
And I didn't know it till later. But he's actually, when he stands up, he's wearing a Raiders shirt.
Oh.
And you're like,
And then, of course, later he's wearing the Superman shirt. Which
is for
Donner,
Richard
the Donner connection. And you even get the Superman score in there.
It was like this movie was like the Holy Trinity as far as production goes. I mean, you got Spielberg, Columbus, Donner. I mean, three guys that really had their ink, their pens in the inkwell at that time, like making names for themselves and big names. So I mean, this movie, it's almost like this movie was set to be a success.
Yeah, didn't Columbus go on to do some of Jenny's favorite movies? I think he did some Harry Potter movies too, I think.
Yeah, he did at least the first 2 or 3.
Yeah, I think at least 2. So yeah, he was
2.
definitely.
I hate those.
I think he came back later too. So.
And he did. I think he directed Home Alone, so we can get into that one day too. So yeah, this guy.
Yeah, and you can see hints of Home Alone. In
with the booby traps.
Sure, yeah, definitely. And
but
the bumbling criminals coming after kids.
Yep.
Kind of thing.
Exactly.
And just on Sloth too, I think they also play. He kind of reminds me of a dog, and I know that sounds terrible, but like he's like loyal and he's just like happy and his ears wiggle. You know what I mean? He kind of reminds me like a big friendly dog. Yeah, you're just like it's my buddy.
And it's funny, they talk about that in the commentary. I watched today with the commentary, and at the end when Sloth has to leave, Sloth gets them out, but he has to stay behind because he can't hold the rock and the place is collapsing. But he ends up getting out with his mom and his brothers, and even though all this has transpired and they're terrible to him, like he's walking the mother up the beach, and like he's being very like
he's still very caring, loving individual. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
loyal.
Absolutely. And he's just he's just so kind. And I like rewatching it this time. Sloth is my favorite part of the movie, basically. So I love him so much.
And I mean, there were multiple moments where I was welling up a little bit watching this, because like it started hitting me in the feels as far as just like remembering being a kid and remembering how I felt watching movies like this, and the thing is like as fantastical as this movie gets at certain times, like none of it ever feels like something that you couldn't go out and do as a kid. It kind of came back to, like, I remember there was HBO had Encyclopedia Brown.
Yes.
And I remember like that being a big thing on me. Like I wanted the little black sports coat that he would wear, and he had a little business card that said Encyclopedia Brown Detective on it.
God, you are a nerd.
Like, I know, man.
We're all nerds.
I've never seen that, so I can't speak to Encyclopedia Brown.
But like touching like on an earlier subject, Jenny's talk about like how the movie affects you emotionally, and the things that like you maybe not notice as a kid, but I kind of felt like I remember this as a kid and kind of took it. But it's from a character that, like, we ain't even talked about the character of Steph. I think it's Martha Plimpton plays her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's in the wishing well, and I had to rewind it because I was like, wow, that actually means something when she's talking about them picking up all those pennies and quarters, and they're talking about these are people's wishes and their dreams, and she's like, these are somebody else's wishes, their dreams. We need to leave these here, and you're like, that's kind of an emotional thing. And then Mouth goes to her like, well, this was my dream and that didn't come true, so I'm taking it back. And you're like,
taking them all back.
And this is a kid, like I said, again, this is a kid movie with pirates and scary stuff and crazy inventions, but then you get down to those little emotional things right there, and you're like, whoa, that's kind of
Yeah,
deep
I mean,
for
are they trying to say
kids.
something about capitalism there? No, I don't think so. But yeah, I love that. You know, I thought you might talk about the kiss down there, because
oh yeah,
you want to talk about, you know, things that kids experience growing up. The older girl you have you might have a crush on her that's like completely out of your league. The idea of, you know, some kind of confusion leading to you know, getting to kiss the high school girl that's, you know, like, and his,
it's like the high school
his
head
face,
cheerleader,
yeah, his
you know?
face after it happens, you just can't help but smile. You know, it's just such an innocent thing. You know?
Or it's when it happens and he's stumbling away and Martha Plimpton's character points, hey, it's this way, and he's like, thanks. Like he's on another world.
He was not prepared for any of that.
And
Yeah.
he's like, oh.
And she got, you know, and the whole does Brand have braces thing is like, come on. You have to know
that's a movie
not
thing.
Brand, you were just
Yeah.
I thought he was taller. He must have been standing in a hole.
Yeah.
And her friend doesn't tell her.
No.
And
Well, lets it go.
Nobody tells her until they figured out then, and she's just like, okay.
I mean, you
no
know,
big deal.
she
yeah,
likes
and
Mikey, so no big deal.
Yeah, and another thing is, as a kid, you know, like between the character of Steph and Mal, they're bickering the whole entire time, like they hate each other. You know, like, oh, I don't like you, and then at the end of it, they're like, well, you're not so bad. You know, but remember, like, I'm pretty sure Jenny might remember as a young girl, because I've heard my mom say this to my little sister, is like, if boys are mean to you, they like
Yeah.
you.
Yep.
You know, or something like that. And I was like,
Which
get
is
that.
a horrible thing to teach.
Yes, I
girls.
know, horrible. And I'm like, yeah.
By the way.
But like you said, like they're screaming at each other and being like
Oh,
totally mean.
God.
And then next thing you know, like, oh my God, these two are going to end up being married and have 3 or 4 kids.
Yeah,
of their
I think
own,
you
know?
need to clarify if a boy is like teasing you on the playground versus if he's just awful to you all the time.
If he's
has no
physically
respect for
mean
you.
to you can punch
Sweetheart,
him in
if
the
he
nards.
hits you, that means he likes you.
Yeah.
No, that's not what that means.
No, you know, yeah. If he hits you in any way, yeah, you punch him in the nards and walk away. You know,
It's funny. Like, again, I watched the commentary, and the commentary had Richard Donner and the cast, the kids, in it, and she's talking during that scene at the end where they're kind of like flirting and being a little shy with one another, and she's like, this was so agonizing to do, because apparently she and Corey Feldman did not get along very well on the set, and she said she had such a hard time doing anything with, and like they were being very, very nice with each other in the commentary about it, because I mean it's been years, so they've gone past it. But like, a lot of what I got from listening to the commentary is they shot the majority of the movie in sequence. So
yeah,
you know, they started in the house and whatnot, and then went into all the other stuff. And by the time the shooting was getting around to wrapping, they were all at each other's throats. Like they had this great relationship at the beginning. And there's one part where Corey Feldman's talking about how him and Sean Astin he's like, I was so pissed off at Sean this day and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, wow, like even though they came across so well in film, like they were still like bickering with each other.
They had good acting chops back then. I hate you, but you know what? You're my best friend for the next 10 minutes.
Yep.
Go ahead, Eric.
But so as far as the booby traps and all of that stuff go,
Booty traps.
again, like
That's
that's what I said. Shut up, mouth. It's just again, like I have to go back to the porch thing at the beginning and whatnot, how they set that up, and then we get into all these elaborate things that are exactly what they're into. And then when Data, you know, the slick shoes and all that stuff, it's
Slick
like
shoes.
all these things that seem. And what's funny is like none of his inventions ever work except in accident, except for that one.
Slick
like,
shoes is the most.
Slick shoes actually
super
work.
effective.
Yeah.
Like it saved all their lives.
I don't know.
Well,
The glove worked when the brothers were
But then it
coming up. He opened
malfunctions
it up.
later.
The glove, boom.
But it worked once.
Then it malfunctioned.
Very Looney Tunes, all that stuff. The oil slick, you know, the boxing glove, even the sound, like it made like a goink, you know, like when he gets punched, like you know, they're definitely playing the Looney Tunes bit there. But Dynamite
Data might have had Yeah, I think Data might have had him and Wile E. Coyote had an account
Yeah.
at Acme or something, because everything was something you would see the Wile E. doing with the
Acme
Roadrunner.
was just
But yeah, even the
Amazon
noises.
back then, right?
Yeah, that's all
Basically.
it was. It was the Amazon for the 80s, Acme. Yes. Like, I think later, doesn't that show up in Who Framed Roger Rabbit? I think we get some more
Acme,
Acme
yeah,
stuff,
absolutely.
too. It's everywhere.
Oh, that's
It was the Amazon of the 80s. Every
Yeah, I
bad
mean,
guy had a Acme account.
so the Fratellis finally start chasing them, and so they're on a time crunch at this point. And then when they get to the piano,
Dude,
like that was
I
one of the
would've
things
been
that
dead.
freaked me out.
Oh, the fingers
Well, yeah,
as
I mean-
the piano keys,
Yeah.
like that stuff is legitimately frightening.
Yeah,
And
yeah, it's pretty gruesome.
one thing I noticed in this movie, after having watched the Cursed Films thing on Poltergeist, and they were talking about the real skeletons, I was
Yeah.
like to Kayla, I'm like, I bet these are real skeletons, and I looked it up. Sure enough, they are. One-Eyed Willie is a real skeleton, and a lot of the other ones are too, I think. I mean, they just look too damn good. They look so good. They're clearly just real skeletons. But yeah, that piano is creepy. And again, you have something that so many kids can relate to, is playing an instrument. Did you practice? Because you got to know your, you got to know your notes now. So
Come on, Josh, play a
any
scene
kid
chart.
can that played an instrument can relate to that.
Your
well,
life
it's funny
depends
you
on
say
it.
that, Jason, because I found out a tidbit of information here, and like it's so funny because I do play piano. I know how to read music in a sense, and something that never dawned on me before is when they're playing, and it's like the last one she has to do, and she says, I don't know if it's A or B or B flat, or A sharp or B flat.
If you get it wrong, we're all going to be flat.
Right. He has a little comment. But the thing is, and this is another one of those little tidbits of information. A sharp and B flat are the same note.
There you go. Thank
So-
you, Mr. Musician.
Yes.
You
What
got it
is
right.
I'd be curious to hear, now that we're kind of dissecting this thing, I'd be curious to hear the notes clean in succession. Like, is that a reference to something? Even if,
Yeah.
Well, what's funny is it says you play the wrong note, you'll fall through the floor or whatever. And they play so many of the wrong notes. It's like, how do they play enough of the right ones? To
I
get
think
the
she
door to
plays
open?
They
two
would have had to
wrong
play
and
three.
three right. So you have like three strikes
They
and you're out.
never go back to play the correct note after they got it wrong. They just move on to the next note.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I didn't understand. 'Cause
So
there's- yeah,
you
go ahead.
just have to skip it. I don't.
Yeah, because it's a whole bar of music. I mean, there are several notes, but yet they only play just a few of them. Like, how? If you get it wrong, why did you go to the next one? Don't you have to play them in a sequence? What's going on here?
Yeah, I think it's a three strikes and you're out. You got to hit the right ones in sequence, not in sequence, just at all. You have to hit the right notes, and if you miss, that's one strike. It's
You're done.
it's Family Feud. But
It's really
skeleton
funny that-
piano.
Yeah, the skeleton piano. The fingers
Yeah.
are bones.
The fingers are
They
creepy.
refer to pianos.
You're gonna
Play the
fall
bones.
to your death
The
if you get
keys,
it wrong.
the keys are creepy finger bones. Yeah,
Well, again, like this goes back to like the way they made movies back then. Because I mean, the production design on this is
Oh, when they
ridiculously
get, I mean, we're not
amazing.
there yet necessarily, but when they get to that open, with the ship, that is beautiful. Like the whole thing is amazing. A full-size ship.
and it was.
Yep.
And it was an actual ship that they built. It was a whole set. It was not green screened at all. And a fun fact I found out is they kept the ship from the kids.
Yeah, they
The
hit it.
entire
Oh,
movie.
so they would
They
see
would
it
not
with
let
true
them see
wonder
the ship.
as they
Right.
found it.
And so the funny thing is they did the shot where they all come through and see the ship for the first time, but they couldn't use any of the takes because the kids were so blown away by it that they didn't react well. It was just more or less just kind of like stone
Yeah,
face.
just looking at it.
Yeah.
So they had to reshoot it.
And the slide was real too.
Yeah.
That slide.
I wanna go on that
much
slide.
fun
Again,
as a
another
kid.
like amazing thing that any kid would love, a water slide that dumps into a cool place.
Adults alike, because actually in the commentary, Richard Donner says that the crew, Like he said he went down that slide. And they were like, and the kids and the cast was all like, no, you didn't. And he's like, no, really, I did. Like, that was so much fun.
That's great.
That's great.
So, but yeah, I mean, that ship, that set, that whole thing is amazing.
Yeah, I think I read later.
So,
Go ahead, Jenny.
Well,
here's where we can
we're
kind
about
of
to
get
get
into.
Well, hold on.
it.
All right, here, Eric. Eric, we get to see some action here going on with Josh and Jenny. Maybe we might have a marriage coming to an end over this.
Do we have to stay? Do we
it.
have to stay chronological? Because I wanted to talk about Chunk in the freezer.
No, let's talk about Chunk in the
Yeah, go
freezer.
ahead.
Chunk
We'll get to
is
the
horribly
family
traumatized in this film. He is
Absolutely.
Oh my
taken
God.
hostage.
Absolutely.
All of these children have PTSD.
No, the other kids. Well, yes, but the other kids go through far less than poor Chunk does. You know, Chunk is captured, and he is tied up and interrogated. But before that, he's stuck with a corpse in a freezer. And the corpse keeps falling on him, and it's gross. Like, it's really horrific. He's a poor kid is like being left. His friends are abandoning him. Jesus. It's
takes
dark.
him a really long time to notice that he's not.
A
with
very
them.
long time.
Right.
Where's Chunk?
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, he takes all that time, finally gets out, and then ends up back in the trunk with the dead body again.
Yes.
Mhm.
And then there's the whole I'm going to stick your arm down a
Yeah.
blender
They threaten
scenario.
harm on him, and
Yeah, tell me the whole story, and then he goes on the rant about every bad thing he's
which is
ever
a
done in
great
his
moment.
life.
I love that when he's
Oh,
just spilling his
yeah, you can
guts.
see Yeah, what's the character Jake? Was that Robert Davi that plays him? The very end
he's
of the race,
definitely
you can
laughing.
see him looking at Chunk, and he is holding in. And he's like, I love this kid. I don't want
Absolutely
to.
noticed
But
that.
that's
yeah.
like a real look, because he's like trying not to laugh so hard.
I noticed that. Absolutely. That's so funny. Yeah, he was clearly just killing it, you know?
And then you bring up Joe. Well, let's talk about Davi. What's his name? The guy who played Jake. Well, him and Joey Pants.
Yeah.
Pantoliano.
Joe Pantoliano,
something
yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently
We
they got
apologize if they're wrong.
apparently they got the jobs because of their banter in like their auditions.
Mm.
Because they were messing with each other the whole time, and they pretty much hired them because of their banter back and forth. And then listening to it in the commentary, the kids were all saying that, like, it shows the part where they're fighting on the ship, and they were like, this was them all the time. They were just constantly like this. I don't know if it was some sort of method thing or what, but they never, like, they were always doing this.
I don't wear a hairpiece.
Yeah.
And another cool thing that happens in the movie is the Jake character, Robert Davi. You know how he's singing? He is actually a trained professional opera singer. That's why he was doing it through the movie. Because you're like, man, that guy's got a great voice for an actor. And you're like, oh, wait, he's actually a trained opera singer. That's why he's so good.
Yeah.
I just love the good Italian singing. I was like, no, I need to go sit down somewhere and eat some spaghetti and pizza now every time I hear him sing. Why didn't they have that at the restaurant? Such a beautiful voice. One lost. Moving on.
Well, okay, so do you have anything else on that, Eric?
I don't know.
Of Chunk's
Sure.
being traumatized as a small kid.
I agree. Like, Chunk goes through some shit.
Well, he also saves
That's why he became a
saves
lawyer in
Sloth
real life.
after that. So, you know, he
Right.
Yes.
doesn't just keep the whole story moving and survive a horrific experience and being kidnapped by escaped convicts. He also saves
Murders.
a disabled person who's been chained in a dungeon. Pretty good. Pretty
Yeah.
solid
And
guy.
how horrible are these people? Like, I don't think you really, as a kid, realize how terrible they are. They're just like the goofy bad
Right.
guys coming after the kids. These are murderers.
Yeah, that guy's
Who-
dead.
Yep.
Will potentially murder these
Mhm.
children, it seems, if they didn't get away when they did.
It's like when the wet bandits
And
catch
all
Kevin
of
and you're
it.
like, oh shit. Like
Oh, they
these
might
guys
do
are
that.
like when he says he's gonna like bite off his fingers and you're just like, The hell?
Or even, I mean, there's even the point in the restaurant where Mama Fratelli grabs hold of Mouth and like puts a knife to his tongue.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. Yes. Yeah.
Like, Jesus, you're gonna kill a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't do that nowadays. That was the
No,
80s.
you
Get
can't
away
put
with
a
all that
knife to
stuff.
someone's tongue these days.
Can't do it.
But then I love when they're leaving, when they chase him out of the restaurant. She shuts the door. Kids suck.
And she had 2 of her own. Grown adults now. Poor Sloth. That's what she
Oh,
was
also,
like.
Chunk knows about gremlins because he called in the gremlins to the police and they didn't believe him.
Yes.
So we got
Okay,
reference that.
There's the connection.
we're gonna go on another
Okay.
little tangent
All right.
off subject for a second, because we're talking about little things we notice and nuances in movies that drive us crazy now. Like, it really bothers me when a movie is referenced within a movie. That and the movie being referenced stars one of the people in the movie that's referencing it.
Mhm.
Like case in point is this one. They bring up the Gremlins thing, and Corey Feldman was in Gremlins.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for some reason in my brain, that
Can't
annoys the shit out
do that.
of me.
Can't do that.
But Chris Columbus had to do with both of them. That's
There
probably why.
couldn't be another
Probably.
kid
I
that
like
looks
it.
like
I think it's fun.
in that world.
Probably. But still, it's
I know
one of
what you
those things, that, those little quirks that I have about movies.
It can
when I
be
watch
more
them.
egregious too than that. Like that is one, but like I'm trying to think of another example, like a more modern example, but sometimes it
The more we talk about movies going forward, the more I will bring that up.
Here's where some people's version of the movie differs. Because when I saw the Goonies on TV, after they get into Lagoon, see the pirate ship and everything, there's a scene before they get on the
know
ship,
what this is.
and what you see is a tentacle going through the water by their feet, and then all of a sudden Steph and Mouth are like attacked by this giant octopus.
Yes.
And I loved this part when I was little, and me and Josh got into probably the closest thing we've ever had to
Is
an
it canon?
argument
Over the Goonies, man.
about
Hey,
this.
Goonies breaks marriages apart every day.
Had not seen the TV version with the octopus and would not believe me that
It
it
exists.
existed.
I've
And
seen
I
it.
still give her shit about it to this day.
Even though he has seen the proof in
Yeah.
the deleted scene that the octopus is real.
But we had a good run there where I would just constantly be like, you made that up. That is not really
Yeah.
something.
And
that
Data
happened."
even mentions it when they're
In the
interviewing them.
end.
He mentions it,
Yeah.
and there was an
The octopus was really scary.
And
Oh,
again,
that's right. I didn't
that's
even
another
think
thing
about
that
Yeah.
hmm
yeah, and that's another thing that's really smart. Like, yeah, like, and they left that in at the end of the movie, right? And they could have easily cut that out, but they actually had a scene where they had an octopus and whatnot, and they cut that out of the movie, but they left in Data saying the octopus was really scary. And it's just kind of one of those little juxtapositions to where, like, yeah, a kid's going to make up a story that, oh, we fought an octopus.
Mhm.
No, you fucking didn't. You didn't fight an octopus. But, like, you know what I mean? Like, even though they cut that scene out of the movie and it actually was there, they left it in at the end because Data just was, like, telling the news people the octopus was really scary, like making stuff up for the news.
Yeah, you got to make it a bit bigger, better story.
Right.
And though on a rewatch at this date, the octopus does not hold up so well. And I think it's a better movie without it.
Yeah.
But it still exists.
The deleted scenes on the Blu-ray had the octopus scene in it, and we watched it last night. And they even said this in the commentary. They were like, that octopus was so bad. And like the eyes on it were real bad, and like you could tell it was just animatronic,
just
and
the
they were
rubber.
moving it in the water with stuff. And
I mean, did they steal
So-
it from the original 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea?
I don't know about that, but yeah, so that was fun for us to debate over for a while, but
It wasn't so fun for me for a long time.
because you thought I was being serious. And there for a while, I probably was, because I had never seen any clips of that movie with an octopus in it. But I was fully aware that Data says the octopus thing at the end of the movie.
Jenny says it was serious. Papers were filed. Just letting you know. Attorneys were, a matter of fact, she got Chunk, the attorney, to file those papers because he knew there was an octopus.
But I mean, and definitely before we get to the end of anything, like, we got to talk about the score, because the score to this movie is absolutely amazing.
Oh yeah.
Like, I think this movie would be nothing without this score, because it truly holds like that sense of adventure with the music and whatnot, and like when they're discovering the map and that like just ambient. I can't replicate it, but just the little cues that they get with that, and like how it just seems so, you know, adventurous. Like, it just works so well.
You hear the movie, the music in the movie, and you know it's Goonies. Just like any of the 80s movies back then, I mean, you hear the music play, you know Indiana Jones is about to show up. You hear anything like that, it was so, you know, that movie had that sound, and without the sound that's in the movie, it takes away from the dramatic parts of it too. Because throughout that whole movie, I mean, that the score adds to, oh my God, we just found all this stuff. So yeah, it's, man, can't have a great movie without a great score.
And
thanks, John Carpenter.
The classic 80s, we're going to put a hit song
Cyndi Lauper
in this movie.
Oh,
Cyndi
yeah.
Lauper.
I forgot about that.
Did anyone watch the Cyndi Lauper video?
I did not.
I didn't.
You guys don't do your homework for this
I heard
thing?
them talking about it.
Well, luckily I did. It's terrible.
Tell us about
Well,
it.
it's
Eric.
awful. It is.
Doesn't it have a bunch of wrestlers?
It's 7
in it
minutes
stuff?
long. It has like a whole narrative before the song even starts. It's got let's see, it's got the Iron Sheik. It's got Roddy Piper. It's got
well, it's good. Roddy Piper.
Who's the other guy?
Andre the Giant's in it too.
Yeah. Lou Albano, the Captain Lou.
Captain Lou.
Who for me was Mario in the Super Mario Super Show. Where he played Mario. Super Mario Super Show. That's not how the song went.
Josh said he never seen the TV show.
Yeah, and
No, I didn't.
Isn't he also the dad and Girls Just Want to Have Fun?
Yes, him and Cyndi Lauper did so much stuff together. She was like in everything that she did.
Those wrestlers are kind of before my time of watching wrestling. You know, like I'm familiar with those guys, but yeah, I mean, Iron Sheik is a good Twitter follow. Just throwing that out there.
I've heard that before. I've heard he has a very interesting Twitter.
Also, at the end of the video, Cyndi Lauper's trying to escape from like some kind of weird, like witch, like sea witch or something, some kind of sea hag. Anyway, she looks at the camera and says, "How do I get out of this?" or "How do I get away?" or whatever. And it cuts to Steven Spielberg outside of a television, and he's like, "Well, all you have to do is, I don't know," and then that's it. It cuts back to the video. It's really weird.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
I feel like I totally missed out on this video. I need to go back and
Yeah, you gotta check it out. Skip through it because it is brutally bad. Like all these wrestlers are like at 11, like acting way crazy, and it's just bad. Ugh. But I do like the song.
Yeah,
it's a fun song,
and
it's just fun.
And that they weren't actually watching that video on set when it plays either, or the song wasn't playing either. Like the song wasn't even out until the movie was done. Mm-hmm. So they had to insert all of those shots of that video and the song in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean,
and I think I should probably introduce our first guest to the show, ladies and gentlemen, the Iron Sheik. No, just kidding. He's not.
Eric.
That was the best Iron Sheik voice I ever heard. Josh,
his classic.
I mean, he's dead.
Iron Sheik's classic catchphrase, Eric.
It's what Josh is known for, his Iron Sheik impressions.
If there's one thing I don't know anything about, it's wrestling.
Yeah. Well,
You just hurt Eric's feelings. He's gonna cry.
But as far as, I mean, by the end of the movie, you reach with, you know, with the kids getting out and the families coming to find them, that they're okay and everything, and seeing the reunited families. With Data and his family is so adorable.
Amazing.
With the dad
Chunk's
with the camera.
family brings a pizza.
Brings him a pizza.
Ooh, the rescue.
Another fat joke. Thanks. Hey, but doesn't he look like his?
But also,
sorry, I was going to say, I had a note that he looked like his mom and sister so much. Like that casting, if it wasn't them.
That was all of their real family, except for Mikey and John
Really?
Brolin. Like, Chunk's family is Chunk's family. Data's family is Data's family. Like,
That's so
invited them
cool,
to-
because I was thinking, like, they look so much alike. That's crazy.
so it wasn't everybody, but it was theirs.
Very cool.
What you got,
but I
Jenny?
would legit want the family who brought
Yeah,
pizza.
and you got to be hungry
Oh,
after
rescue.
all that.
Chunk hasn't
Well, he had some
eaten
ice cream.
in like at least 12
He had more than the
hours.
other
Yeah,
kids. You know,
Yeah,
they
remember-
just
ice cream
swallowed
was
some
a long
seawater.
Yeah.
maybe some seaweed on the going down the slide.
Now-
I'll chew on
Maybe.
this on the way down.
Before we get to the end, we have to talk about On the Pirate Ship.
Yeah, the
Because when you get on there and you see One-Eyed Willie's treasure, that's
payoff.
like
Yeah.
holy shit, this is real.
yes, all this stuff they've been searching for.
It's all gonna
Yeah,
work out.
And I love the line when
Like-
they first get there, when they haven't found it yet, and the girl says, "Where's the treasure?" And Mikey says, "This whole ship is the treasure," which is true. Even if there was
Yes.
no, even if
Because
there was
his
no
dad-
gold on that ship, it would still be like an insane discovery, you know. But yeah, when you get in there and there's just gold everywhere, it is magical. It is magical.
Gold jewels.
And I will say
But
I keep
Mikey-
interrupting you.
had to have taken that in from his dad, who's the head of the historical society. So
Yeah.
history is important to
Mhm.
him. I don't think that
You're
they
right.
would be
That's,
on this journey if it wasn't.
Yeah, that's a true character, true to the character, the line, you know, that he appreciates the history of it. And
And then even when they're taking the gold, he says, "That's
One-Eyed
Willie." Like he makes sure, like, he has the respect for what they're there for,
Right.
and like, you know, Willie went through all of this to get this here. We reap the benefits, but leave some of it for him. Like,
Yeah.
just that.
did
kind of thing,
anyone
you know?
get really scared as a kid? When probably not you horror kids, but when I saw the eye patch lift up, woo, the little flat
Oh,
spot on
yeah,
the,
that's
that
like a-
gave me the willies. God damn.
So that's why they called you One-Eyed Willie.
And Richard Donner, to the point where they had recorded that commentary, Richard Donner still has One-Eye Willie's head.
I read that as well, which, you know, knowing that
I
it's a
would,
real
yeah.
skull makes that extra little.
Yeah.
Creepy.
A little creepy. Just
Very
just
cool.
A little bit.
So I don't know if anybody else thought this when they were younger, because I'm the only woman on this podcast today. But when they're finding not only the gold but all the jewels,
Oh, the
and
yeah.
Andy holds up this huge like tiara diamond draped over her hair thing, and Steph's like, "Oh my god,
yeah,
oh
the
my
jewelry.
god!" Like, and
Absolutely.
everything. And I was just like,
I want to be a pretty princess.
And Sloth comes in for the rescue, and of course he was watching the Errol Flynn movies.
I bet
Right.
say Aeroplane
And
movie.
he
Yeah.
comes in Superman style and kicks ass.
And the
Saves the
music
day.
there is amazing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, I can't do that, or we'll get copyrighted.
That was really nice.
Yeah, I think you guys screwed it up
Copyright.
enough.
Like,
You don't
First
have to worry
episode,
about that.
guys.
Unrecognizable.
But no, like from the moment you hear "Hey, you guys," like that's it. Got me last
You know what?
night.
Honestly,
I was
same.
like, oh man, this movie is
Yeah,
so fucking
Just
good.
with just this warmth in my chest, just felt so good, and it's like just yeah, you know, he's here.
Yeah.
Save the day.
And even
Yes.
like even when there's like, it's Chunk, and he's like, no, Captain Chunk.
Chunk.
Like, I love
I love
it,
when
dude.
Chunk
It's
swings down
so
from the
good.
rope. It's like the worst swing. Remember when
Yeah.
he jumps off
Poor Chunk.
like 2 steps or like 1 step, and they have to catch him. So I love Chunk.
It's great.
It's funny that you can see the dummies too when they're like swinging, and like when he swings and grabs a mouth and the girl off
Off of the plank.
off the plank. You can tell they're dummies, and
It's not very nice.
that's the downside to HD nowadays.
talk about Corey
You start to
Feldman
see
like
that
that.
kind of stuff.
You can tell they're dummies.
I wasn't paying close enough attention to that. I was caught up in the wonder
Yeah.
of the moment.
Sorry, most us guys, we were like, there's no way that's possible. I cannot swing that way. Like, he's swinging to pick them up. He's not even holding the rope. He's out like this.
Yep.
Like, he's not even
That's
holding the
true.
rope.
How do
I
you
was
swing
like,
on a rope and grab 2 people?
people
Yeah.
at
You
the
gotta
same
have like
time.
really
How
strong
is
butt
this
cheeks to
possible?
hold onto that rope.
He's just got his thighs
Just-
wrapped around it.
He's strong.
He
Oh.
was down there with Suzanne Summers and the Thigh Master while he was watching TV, working on the muscular thighs.
It was like Jane Fonda back then.
There you go.
So yeah, this is a great fucking movie, man.
Yeah.
It just like when it was over, I was just like, this is like the quintessential kids movie in my opinion. Like, and I know we're going to talk about other kids movies that some people have an affinity for coming up soon.
I have to agree with
But,
you.
like-
I it was magical and wonderful all the way through, and I felt more nostalgia for it watching it this time than in previous. Having described how I saw it as a child, my opinion has changed quite a bit. It's just that like you say, it's a perfect 80s kids movie. It's just got excitement, adventure, comedy, all that stuff all at once, beautifully made. Wonderful.
A big
That-
love for Prince in this movie too. Like, you can see a Prince poster and
Yeah.
Miles wearing the
Mhm.
Prince,
Prince
shirt.
shirt.
Like,
Yep.
yeah, like I love that about it too. Like, that made me want to get a Purple Rain shirt. man.
Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of good movies from my childhood that I would say shaped the way I think about movies, but this one is up there. And I mean, I think that this movie helped shape the way I think about movies, because it is just a wonderful like time capsule
Yeah.
for not only like the 80s and the time, but just, I mean, this is like one day in these people's lives, and it's just got a sense of wonder. And it truly, you can't say it enough times, but Goonies never say die. I mean, that the heart of this movie is that you love something and you fight
That's right.
for it until you can't fight for
That's
it
right.
anymore.
And Chunk adopts Sloth at the end too, which is just
Yeah,
makes me just
you're gonna
like,
come live
oh,
with
he
us.
adopted him immediately. So good.
Yeah.
And I don't think he asked his parents. He was just like, "You're coming to live with me."
Yeah.
Done
Hey, Mom, can I
deal.
adopt this giant man that I just found in a dungeon? Yeah, sure.
He did save my life.
Yeah.
So.
So, as far as things go, I mean, there's always in Hollywood nowadays, of course, you're making sequels to stuff and whatnot. Like, could this movie benefit from a remake nowadays, or is it? I mean, I have my opinion, but I'd like to hear, like, is this a movie that needs to be remade, or like, do you think they will remake it? Like,
Absolutely not. And I'll tell now, I don't know if they will remake it because Hollywood does some stupid shit. But I have friends who have kids that are the age that I was when I saw this, and they are showing their kids the Goonies.
Yeah.
And their kids love it.
Mhm.
It transcends time.
It holds up really well, and
It does
all the
hold up.
effects look really good, except for a couple rear projection things that don't look so awesome. But for the most part, it looks great. So there's, it's not like a technological thing where new technology would help you in any way. Imagine the Goonies. Well, you'd have to set it. They did remake Goonies. It's called Stranger Things. basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
That's
got
true.
a
A
point.
Pretty
little
much.
bit.
It would be hard to not.
With Sean Aston.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, with Sean Aston. Yeah.
So I mean, but there's been talk about sequels for years.
Prequel with the parents. I'm here for it. This was my idea.
Prequel.
Of them
For the
just
parents.
riding around and not finding
Prequel with the
anything.
parents.
Yeah, I mean, that's
And
the
it's
biggest.
just the parents go. Yeah, they look around. They don't find it. They go to school. His dad goes to college to work in history in a museum, and his mom
Museum.
breaks her arm, and then we roll right into Goonies.
And we start right into
Yeah,
the Goonies.
so. I'm thinking 8 seasons. Make it the TV show.
But give it a David Lynch twist with some twin.
Oh,
peaks
yeah.
stuff in there.
God.
So okay. So when we're done with our movies at the VHS Files, our simple question is was it worth the rental? Jenny,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jason,
I give it a 8 out of 10 for sure.
Yes,
since you actually physically did,
I
rent it
did.
to watch it,
I
was it
somehow
worth the
don't
rental?
have it. I thought I had it, but in fact, I passed up on buying it. I saw it a few times for really cheap, and I passed it up because I thought I had it, and I had to rent it on Amazon or Apple or something.
Well, we can bequeath our copy to you because we have 4K. coming.
Yeah, we'll be watching it in 4K next
Well,
time we watch it.
That's very
So
exciting.
lucky.
Thank you. I will welcome it in my home.
So, I mean, I think that's it for our discussion of the Goonies, guys. Unless you guys have anything else you want to talk about,
No.
are Goonies good enough?
Goonies never say die.
Actually, they did. They said it 4 times. Little
say that a
tidbit of a
lot.
movie fact there. I was like, they did say it 4 times in the movie.
So we're gonna go ahead and wrap up the Goonies for this time. Now, at the end of the show, we do like to do our staff picks for the day here at the store. You at your old VHS stores, you would have the staff picks where people would recommend things. Now, we're gonna do this a little non-traditional. We're gonna give everybody something that we just think they should, keep their ear to the ground for, or something that we enjoy that we think other people may like. And it could be music, it could be movies, it could be anything as far as that goes. And I'll start. As far as music goes and the time and the era that we're kind of delving into and starting off this podcast with, we talked about the score for the Goonies. I've been listening to a band named Gunship for the past 2 years. If anybody has not listened to Gunship and you enjoy 80s movies, scores, like the old synth scores, like John Carpenter style, stuff like that, check out Gunship. You can find them on YouTube. You can find them online. They are a great band that brings back a lot of nostalgia. Their videos on YouTube are also amazing. They also harken back to the times of VHS, and they really call back to a lot of the movies we love and stuff like that. So please, everybody, if you like that kind of thing, check out Gunship. They're definitely worth checking out. Jenny, you got anything?
Right now, what I'm digging is the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. It is the prequel to the Hunger Games trilogy. It follows a young President Snow before he is President Snow, and it's taken some turns that I didn't see coming, and I'm really enjoying it. So I really thought that the Hunger Games books were fantastic. The movies didn't quite live up to the books, as movies never do, but I like where she's going with this. I think it's a good way to go back into the world without trying to hold on to the same characters too much.
There is one movie that blows the book away, and we'll talk about that on a future episode. We'll just leave it at that.
Yep.
Jason, you got some?
Yeah. Currently, not only am I a horror fan, I'm also a comic book fan. For all my symbiote fans out there, if you haven't read the new run of Venom by Donny Cates, it is freaking fantastic. The artwork, the story is so great. I don't know if I get in trouble for mentioning the Marvel Universe, but looks like if you're into reading this, we're going to have a really big story arc coming up toward the end of the year. But definitely a good read. I love it. And then as far as something music-wise, I'll give this to Josh because he's the guy that introduced me. But a band called Laserhawk, if you like the 80s synth, like he was talking about with Gunship, with maybe a lot less singing, go check them out. It is so great to listen to. Just something good you can have in the background while you're working in the house or doing anything. And it's great music. So those two things, new Venom run, check out some Laserhawk.
Nice. Eric?
Gosh, I'm blanking, guys. I don't have anything to share. I've been thinking about it the whole time,
Playing
whole
any
podcast,
video games or anything?
and I cannot think.
You're our video game guy, aren't
well,
you?
I did play Ghost of Tsushima. That's been very fun here in the lockdown. Good time waster. Lovecraft Country, just started that. Everyone's talking about it anyway, so.
Oh, we haven't started it yet.
So those are good.
All right, guys. I think that's going to be it for our first VHS Files podcast. I had a great time.
That was fun.
Everybody had a good
fun.
time.
Me too.
Great.
Yes.
Love the traveling back in time. It's great.
Yeah. So our plan is to have one new episode out for you guys every Friday as best as possible. If there's going to be any issues with that, you can catch up with us on social media. We'll be posting up any kind of updates there. We do have an email. If anybody listening would like to email us some questions or comments or anything of that nature, we are at the.vhsfiles@gmail.com. You can catch us on Facebook at VHS Files Podcast. We're on Instagram at the.vhsfiles, and our Twitter is at FilesVHS. That's the only way they would let me put it on Twitter. So, and we will also have some YouTube stuff coming very soon. We do have a page set up. However, there is not really anything on it at this point, but it is the VHS Files Podcast on YouTube. So that's really going to do it for this episode. Great first episode, in my opinion. And next week we'll be coming back and we'll be talking about a pretty hairy movie that might involve some basketball. So I'll just leave it at that. So until then, everybody have a great time. And we would like to leave you with this. Please be kind and rewind. Have a good night, guys.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
It's over.